Well, look who it is. How you doing, kiddo? Yeah, I saw your combat training. The visual augmentations feeling alright? Yeah, that rifle put you on your ass the first few times, so I was hoping that research and development was going to get you some sort of chemical cocktail to boost you up, you know? Like I told you, we can't have our investments getting killed off during their first day on the job, so we got a whole pharmacy of shit lined up precisely to keep our agents ticking, some even past their expiration date, but we'll cover that later. The reason I called you in here tonight was I need to cover a few basic safety rules for things out in the field. It's not the most exciting part of my job, so trust me when I say I'm not any more enthused about it than you are to sit here and listen to it. But better to get the information now than get bitten by the wrong thing and end up on one of our dissection tables. Trust me, it's not the most fun out there. The first thing I wanted to cover on this little fun report of yours was Eldritch abominations. You know, Cthulhu stuff, tentacles, wings, a face only a mother could love. Have you seen any of that? No, don't bother answering. Trust me, you haven't. All that media Lovecraft put out was watered down stuff that we fed him over years and years. We just didn't really expect him to think it was true and then, you know, crack like an egg. Around that time was actually when we reorganized the company too, now that I think about it. Huh. The point is, you're gonna want to write this down, by the way. The point is, if you'd actually seen the Big C, you'd be in one of two places. Either worshipping the great old one in some manic pudding brain state, or locked up in one of our cells for study. Remember that dissection table? Yeah. All the forms of media you've seen regarding Eldritch abominations is extremely tame in comparison to the actual reality of it, and quite frankly, we're tired of having to scribble agents lost to cult on our annual reports. While we can't cut our dealings with, like, say, the fish folk entirely due to deals and the summer cookout plans and etc., we do have lessons that we want to instill in new agents to avoid any further problems. Number one being, more of a tip actually, is that if something feels wrong, 99% of the time it typically is. Your former civilian brain would have normally just adjusted and replaced that blinking multi-eyed spider on the wall with a dark shadow, or just giving you a reason to look back at your phone. But now that you're starting to accept the reality of the world, you're going to start noticing things that have always been there, that will always be there, honestly. I've lost you again, haven't I? Here, let me simplify it for you. Human brains squishy, monsters not squishy. And we tend to attract a lot of monsters here. We're not the only sentient species in this galaxy by a long shot, but aliens are another department entirely. The issue is that we tend to attract a lot of things with the amount of energy that we give off. We're kind of raw, I guess, in that sense. So you've got to kind of accept that these things are always going to be lurking at the edges of your vision whenever they get the opportunity. Most won't make the jump, but the ones that do are the ones that I'm sending you this report on. Better to be prepared. If it helps, a lot of these Eldritch entities are things that we're familiar with at this point, so most of them have a quick way to be dealt with, or at least dissuaded from trying to, you know, suck out your brain or something equally unpleasant. Personally, I think our agents would be happy to accept the fact that their world is a little more expansive than just, you know, pushing pencils or scribbling down notes in or Excel documents, but damn, we could be a narrow-minded species some days. Truth's right there, smelling like bad tuna and a bad breakup. But some people would rather just curl up and retreat into their own mind and face the fact that our world is a little more creative. I got off on a tangent, haven't I? Yeah, that happens. Anyway, back to point. Take the absolute worst-looking, nightmarish creature you can think of and tell yourself it's real. Keep telling yourself that until it sticks. That way, you'll have less of a mental backlash if we tell you to go kill one or to go punch it for its rent money. Oh yeah, we got a whole apartment complex for the fish folk out on the beach. Place rakes in the cash. We just gotta go collect, since sometimes timeless entities are really bad about remembering a monthly payment. So that covers that. What's the next one? Here we go. Moving on from the fish, we move on to the dead and dying. Well, technically undead. Living dead, zombies, walkers, living impaired, whatever media you choose to binge on Netflix. The point is, they're as common as watching a lizard person get a political position. Seriously, every supernatural catastrophe, walking corpses as far as the eye can see. How have we not all died to a zombie outbreak by now? Well, technically that's one of the truths I'm about to drop on you here, kiddo. There is no undead zombie outbreak. Technically there never will be. A corpse is only ever reanimated by necromancy or other supernatural means. We tried slaughtering a viral infection under the same category, but moved it over to a mutation category somewhere around the mid-1900s. Since scientific zombies still typically has functioning brain and an organ, it's just all been reprogrammed to try to eat your face. No. What you're dealing with here on this report is something that a little more complex and not at the same time. These zombies have been spiritually reanimated corpses and changed with some form of black magic or a twisted soul or just something that compels them forward, like a panic buyer trying to get the last roll of toilet paper. Sometimes the lines blur and you'll get a supernatural undead with mutations, but I'll send you an email with the differences on that. Seriously, read it. Knowing what you're walking into just might save your life, and which makes my life easier. Though, one plus to finding the magically reanimated is that all magic has a key composition. Figure out the equation that the person is using, and you can basically unravel it by pulling at the right string. For example, most undead that are reanimated by a warlock or a witch are typically shadow-based. This means that if you can figure out basically the composition of the shadow spell, you can just cancel it entirely and the corpse drops back to the ground. That's simple. Though, if you're going to delve into how to both reanimate and non-reanimate corpses, HR is going to ask that you just don't take it home. We've had a lot of people trying to reanimate dead family members, and that just leads to a lot of court cases, and it's a pain in the ass. Okay. And here we are. The last topic I wanted to discuss today was faith. No, not religion. Religion is rather harmless in comparison, but besides the flying spaghetti monster conspiracy that popped up a couple of years ago, but we took care of that pretty quickly. Now, meanwhile, faith can be held in anything, and that's where we start having a problem. I could spend the entire work week going over the amount we've learned from watching people like pray to some ancient entity or even to a statue, and bam, you've had a brand new god to worry about on top of the old ones. Little info dump here. The will of humanity is scarily powerful when all focused into a single point, like I was saying earlier. It's why we can pick up supernatural talents so easily and why we're monster central on this planet. We make a pretty good snack. The flip side of that coin is that when you get enough desperate zealots in a single spot, their collective energy does one of two things. Either it empowers an entity that is already existing and trying to take advantage of them, typically a demon or something of that nature, and then they end up summoning it, which we've dealt with that before. Demons aren't anything new. Hell, I've got brunch with one next week. The more complicated scenario, and the one that we tend to dislike, is the one where they're worshipping something that we've never heard of. Now, granted, there is very little we haven't heard of, but like the flying spaghetti monster, some things just come out of nowhere. And that can tend to make the brass sweat up in management, and quite frankly, I don't blame them. Last time I told you that information is both our power and our currency, which is true. And that means when a new god is birthed up in some redneck ceremony down in Alabama, for example, we're now dealing with something we have no information on. This means we have to play catch-up, and we hate playing catch-up. We have our fingers in the cookie jar of almost every major religion, which required literally centuries of work and planning. Trust me, I was there for most of it. While we could go ahead and infiltrate and subvert the leadership of every cult that we find, it's simply not cost-effective to have to comb the entire planet for it. And again, we prefer to observe rather than directly get involved. This goes back to what I said about us not fighting for what we know. We observe, we record, and only go hands-on when one asset either threatens to blow up on our face or threatens to become an anomaly. Up until now, this wouldn't have been something that we would do a full employee briefing on to someone so new. But with the current state of the planet after 2020, people are taking whatever excuse they can get for salvation. This has led to some rather uncivilized entities being summoned up and simply refusing to do business in a proper civilized manner. So, we're having to get everyone enlightened on the possibility. You still with me? Cool. Because this briefing wasn't all just for the fun of me hearing myself talk, as much as I do like that. We've got a development happening in the windy city of Chicago that hits every one of the talking points we've covered here. Eldritch abominations camping out by some black cathedral that just appeared overnight. Corpses rising out of its tombs and far too many civilians flocking to worship at its halls. It's not possible that this is an anomaly that just happened to end up on our soil. No, it's too organized, too specific. Management wants eyes on this yesterday, and they're sending a lot of new recruits out there to do it. That means you get to kick off your training wheels and get your feet wet. Hopefully not with Eldritch blood, but we know how to get that stain out if it comes to that. So, mission: finish your combat cycles for the day, and then report down to the R&D eggheads, 6th floor, 6th door down. They'll get you all suited up with whatever gadgets and equipment you're going to need to take on whatever's going on bump of the night over in Chicago. Just don't touch anything down in R&D. Dimensional reatomization isn't covered by your level 1 insurance, and I've lost too many agents that way. Okay, well, I think that about wraps it up with me today, kiddo. Finish your paperwork, get me those reports as usual, and then please tell Bigsley downstairs in R&D to get me that self-filling coffee mug. It's been weeks, it can't be that hard to figure out. Ciao, ciao, kid.